Okay, as promised, let's bring in the second fittest man on earth, Pat Vellner. Pat, how you doing?
Good, fellas. How are you doing?
We're doing fantastic. You've had some time now to reflect on what happened at the games, and what are your biggest takeaways from that weekend of competition?
Ooh, biggest takeaways. I don't know. It took me a little longer than I would have hoped or liked to really settle into a good competitive, position. I think I didn't feel like myself really until like Saturday, end of Friday, Saturday, which is, it's a long hiatus from live competition. I think I expected a bit of that, and I was hopeful I'd climb that mountain a little faster. But yeah, I think it's become clear that I took a few events off, and I can't do that. So I need to revisit a couple things, and there's some things that I have stopped training as much so that I could do more of other things, and I paid for that a little bit over the course of the weekend. So yeah, I think that there's some different little movements or different things that I definitely need to stay on top of. But overall, I was really happy with my return to competition, and I think that I executed well in a lot of things, better than I hoped for in certain areas, and like I said, worse than I would have liked in some other ones. But yeah, I think it was overall positive. But like I said, if I could think of 5 events I'd like to do again, and have those ones back. So 10 out of 15 ain't bad, but it ain't good. So I think that in order to win, you got to be a little better than that.
Yeah. What does that like rust shaking process actually look like? Like, is there a moment when like, okay, I feel comfortable back out here? Is it like is it a tactile feeling? Is it a strategic thing? Is it an execution process?
I think some of that always you feel in every competition, and people talk about first event jitters. And I think that as a competition wears on, you kind of settle into what your ability is like for that weekend, based on whatever number of factors, what your training looked like leading in, like any kind of how your body's holding up. And it helps you make decisions. So I think there's a little bit of that always that settles as the competition wears on. And I think that a lot of it to me was comfort and confidence. And I think just a feeling of control. Like I felt frantic for a lot of the first day, even in performances that were good. I won event 2, but it felt bad. Like I felt out of control. And I think that's a combination of things. I was, after one event, I was backed in a corner already, and I needed to do something like that. But it was a good event for me, and I executed it reasonably well, but I made some dumb little mistakes over the course of the workout, and I just felt a little bit out of control the whole time. And I think that I didn't really feel, I would say that whole first day I felt that way, and then, started to settle in. Friday morning, that rope climb workout, I felt very much in control and confident and comfortable. And then I took I got punched around for 3 events where I just executed poorly, and I just did bad for 3 events in a row, and it really rocked me. And then I think that evening I was just trying to put one on the fairway in order to start to build back momentum. So I wasn't confident being aggressive, wasn't confident, attacking workouts. And then by Saturday, I had kind of shaken that off, and I felt like I was comfortable with what I needed to do and what I could do in every workout. And so I think I started to execute better as a result of shaking off some of that baggage. Right. So that's like how I think my day one was just very frantic, and nothing felt like it was clicking, and it wasn't smooth. It was just like, yeah, it was spastic. I was flailing. And then I fixed it a bit on Friday, but then I immediately lost it. And then starting Saturday, I felt like myself again. And so, yeah, 2 days is not enough, right? So that's the reality. Is I think you kind of get what you deserve in that one, and that's how it ended up. So overall, knowing that, I can't be mad with how things went and how I did. I think I'm very happy with that. It's nice to come back to competition and have some success again after, especially a couple tough years at the games. And yeah, I mean, is there stuff to improve on? Certainly. And I know exactly where it is and what went wrong. So we'll build on that, and we'll get back to it for this year.
Yeah. And you kind of mentioned that, like the couple tough years at the games. I know in 2019, you took some calculated risks, even in event one that maybe didn't quite pay off the way that, does that play into that feeling out process this year when you're like, oh man, I dug myself a hole, but did like the confidence factor kind of plays into it and trying to attack again?
I think it was stressful at the start of this year's competition, and not because of event one. Like, I think event one was an easy one to start on for me because there was low expectation. And so I think, personally looking at an event where you're like, hey, if I come 20th, that's okay. Like, I understand where my abilities maybe lie within this field. And I think it's important to not overreach in some events because you can, crash and burn pretty easily if you do that. So, I think the disappointment you feel taking a 35th when you're expecting a 25th is not that significant. The disappointment you feel when you take a 10th when you're expecting like a second or a first is much more significant.
Mm-hmm.
So I think those types of executions you feel differently. And so, event one was what it was. I interpreted the workout a certain way and I wasn't able to execute on the paddle as well as I would have liked. And that is what it is. It was more of an element I'm not as familiar with or comfortable with, and I just misread it, and that sucks. But it wasn't really a reflection of my ability or fitness in my mind. So it was very easy to move on from that. But going into event two, it's hard to not do that event one and be like, all right, that's really bad. Like, I don't think I'm 35th in this field, but like going into this event, suddenly it's like, now you have to really show up in a big way and say like, all right, like, am I 35th in the field? So knowing that second event carried a lot of weight for me, that was like an event where there's a lot of elements in there that I'm good at. And I think that at that point of the weekend, it's very early, but I looked at that as like, if you can't execute this, that spells trouble for the weekend. So like I said, I didn't feel great. And I think I knew that had that kind of added weight on that event for me, that like, I know it's event two of the weekend, but this feels very make or break to me, where it's like, if you can't do this and this is shit you're good at, you're in for a long weekend. Maybe it means whatever, your preparation was off, something's off, whatever it is. I don't know, but it's like, that could be a lot of trouble. So I think that I was aggressive in that workout in a way that I wouldn't have been probably had I had a better finish in event one. But those ones are more stressful where you're like, there's no reason for me to miss on this one. Like, if you can't hit this ball, then you've got a lot of trouble. So that was really good to execute that and feel at the end, I by the back end of that workout, I was clear that I was going to win it. So I was like, all right, we're cool. You're still fit. You're still good. Like, you got a mountain to climb, but like you have the skills to do it and you have the tools to accomplish that task. So, it's not an unfamiliar position for me, unfortunately. I think that my initial reaction after that first event was like, 2018, I literally did the exact same thing, slightly worse. I was 36th in the crit. So I was like, it is what it is. I actually didn't know what my finish was on that first event until after I finished the second event. And I think Mike Arsenault told me on the field. I was like, all right. But
thanks, buddy.
I knew, I figured it was like a bottom five. So I was like, 2018, we had 4 events day one. I bombed the first one and I still came back to like top, I think I was 6th or something. So my plan was to just like get back in the top heat, make sure you finish day one and you don't lose heat advantage. And then from there, knowing obviously we were going into a weekend with 15 events, I was like, yeah, that's a lot of events. There's a lot of points. So I think that, I knew that it was doable, but again, obviously a mountain to climb. So the second event was very important for me to prove to myself that I was capable still.
Yeah. I realized that I owe you an apology. I thought it was your swimming that, kept you towards the back of that event, but you got out of the water in a pretty good position. What was it about the kayak that just gave you so much trouble?
Yeah, I mean, you and everybody else, Sean. I think that's almost the most annoying part about it, is that I know that, but everybody else is like, "Whoa, another swim event, blah blah." And I think it was a bit of a miscalculation. So I read that workout as the paddle would be more significant than the swim, and you would spend significantly more time paddling than swimming, regardless of your ability on either. So I'm not naive. I'm not the best swimmer in that field. The fins would help me a lot because obviously I'm a bit of a sinker. And so I thought, with fins, I think it'll be fine. But I still think you don't want to over pull. You don't want to overexert your arms and things like that, because you're going to paddle a lot longer than you're going to swim. And I also know with fins, I've done some fin swimming in the past for drills and stuff, and you can like cramp up your legs and things if you're over aggressive with your kick wearing fins. So I just looked at it as like, swim reasonably conservatively, don't do anything aggressive, don't come out of the water in bad shape. But you know, the paddles where you're going to pick people off. In the past, I've had events like that. Like when we did the swim paddle run in 2018, I think I came out of the water in like a late 20s position, and I picked off like 8 or 9 guys on the paddle. So I'm like a good puller, good at that. And I thought, that's, to me, it looks like the same event. That's what I'm going to do. Mm-hmm. And yeah, I got on the paddle. And I think part of the problem is there is an advantage being in a pack on that paddle and riding a little bit of wash and not having to plow your own water. Mm-hmm. So I do think riding in the group, whether if you just stayed a little more close in the swim, gave you a little bit of advantage that I didn't give the credit it probably deserved. And then I don't know, other than that, I think probably in hindsight, my body position on the paddle wasn't good. I've done, like, my mom was a competitive kayaker, and I have some friends who were, and they got a few tips on things like that. And I haven't done a lot of kayaking. And when the kayaking I have done has been very like lazy. It's when you're on a date. I'm not racing for distance or time, right? So I knew technically what I could do, but on those kayaks, I think my weight was too far forward in hindsight. And I think that in a kayak, you want to lean forward, and that's a better body position. But I think I was sinking my front end a lot, and I was plowing a lot of water instead of skimming the back up a bit. So I actually think I might have taken my technical cues too seriously, and not just read the situation. And I think had I probably leaned my body back slightly, I would have cut through the water a little more nicely, and I would have had an easier paddle. Because what I ended up finding is I could paddle, pull heavy strokes, or I could pull light, fast strokes, or I could change my paddle up a lot. And no matter what I did, I had one speed, and it wasn't very fast. So I was just kind of slowly losing ground. And even if I said, all right, I'll have to turn the jets on for like 20 strokes, I still didn't make up any ground. So it was it's a long, frustrating event, because at that point, 20 minutes into the paddle, you've got another 30 minutes to go, but it's clear that nothing's going to change. And I think I wasn't flexible enough in the way that I tried to work on the paddle. And I think that had I been, maybe less dedicated to like sticking on these points of performance that I had given myself, and been more flexible with my feeling in the water and in the boat, I might have fixed that. But anyway, it is what it is. I mean, it's easy to do that in hindsight. So yeah, it was a long paddle across the water, and annoying to be like, it's such a slow event once you're on the paddle, and you can see everything, and you get past like ships in the night. Like, it's so slow. Somebody kind of slowly cruises past you, and it's like, hey, you're like, hi. And so you kind of had this long haul where you were, it was just like, I had a lot of time to think about how bad this finish was going to be. Right. So, that's not an awesome feeling, but it gave me a lot of time to think about like, well, it's going to be a bad finish, but we've got 4 events today. The next one should be good. Like, think about how I'm going to start to put the train back on the tracks.
Yeah. The polar opposite of that event was the sprint event in 3, as far as like time to think. What was your experience? I know you kind of, I'm actually looking at your post from social media, which was awesome, of you and Guy. What was it like, kind of like getting in and jockeying for position? And to me, that's like, that's like a schoolyard type event. Like, you and your buddies are like placing bets down on who can, win in a foot race.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm usually not the aggressor in a workout like that. I don't know. My days of like pushing people around are a little bit behind me. But I think when we lined up, I didn't really pay much attention to the heats when we got back there. I saw I was in heat 3, and I said, okay, cool. And then as we were getting close to our heat time, the guys were lining up, and there was like two types of athletes in our heat. We had guys like Will and Saxon who were very fast the last time we had a sprint event. So I thought, oh, that's great. It's nice to have fast guys who are going to pull your heat along. we didn't know anything about Guy, so I didn't really factor him into what I was doing. But then we had big dudes, like we had Alex Caron, like Cole Sager, Royce Dunn, like we had some units who are not afraid of contact.
Yeah.
So the way I looked at it was like, you don't want anything to do with that fight. I can run, I can't run and fight these guys. So like the way you need to do it is you need to get in front early, like be very aggressive at the start line. And it's hard I think we all know a 500-meter run is not a full sprint. So it's hard to convince yourself to sprint it for the first 150 meters to clear away from the people. So, you're kind of setting up for like a fly and die. Like you're just like, hey, I know this is going to suck and it's going to hurt for that last 100 meters and I'm going to slow down, but I think this is the right decision. Because if I get pinned in behind people, you can't, you got to run around them and you got to do like all kinds of stuff that makes it way harder. Like at the very least, I'm going to make them run around me.
Yeah.
So that was like the part of the plan is I just, I think I don't remember who I was next to, Alex Hudette and somebody else on my left. But
Who's also a big dude.
Andre Hudette. Yeah, she was very big. Yeah. So that's why I was just like, I just can't, I'm going to get my elbows high and I'm just going to fucking get to the front. And once we got moving, Guy and I were at the front kind of running side by side for most of it. And which was good. I think it kept us on a hard pace. And then near the end, like I fully cut him off on the last corner to try to just like body position him. And then he just hit the jets and we hit the turf. And I feel like I just got burned and I was like, all right, see you later. And I managed to hold off Sachs and then Will just got me by a hair. But I think the top 5 scores in that event were from our heat. So we were fast, which was good. I think, I probably had something to do with pulling that heat out fast, but that was one where I just told myself before I was still in that mindset of having to make up a lot of points. And I was like, you like it or not, you need to be very aggressive.
Yeah.
And you don't want to be in a fight, get in the front and body position is big. Like we have a straightaway and 2 corners and a straightaway, like body position is going to be very important. So I kind of decided that and then, I had to just stick to it. And, I was vaguely paying attention to the first 2 heats and it seemed like mostly the athletes who started in front finished in front, with a couple exceptions of someone from like 3rd or 2nd passing the person in the lead at on the turf.
Mm-hmm.
It seemed like you didn't want to game it too much. You had to come out fast. So I didn't expect a top 3 finish in a sprint, but I think more of that was me kind of outperforming my pay grade with aggression and some strategy. But that was another big win for me for sure.
I was gonna say, I don't know,
particularly after getting cut in 2019 on a sprint, it was good redemption.
Yeah, I was gonna say, and you're a lax guy too. I mean, your days of throwing bows may be over, but you know how to leverage body position a little bit and showcase some heat when you need to.
Oh, for sure. I joked with my brother. Messaged me, my younger brother, who I played a lot with growing up.
You played box, right?
Yeah. So he was like, wow, nice job on that one. And I told him that was probably from years of chasing breakaways from his lazy line changes. Because I always played the other end of the ball from him. Like I played a lot of defensive transition and he was an offensive guy, let's score. So I was like, yeah, that's your lazy ass line changes coming to help me out. He's like, you're welcome. I used to do a lot of penalty kill ragging and stuff. So I've done a lot of those like 90-second running for your life moments. Oh, man. So I was not unfamiliar with what that would feel like, but it's been a few years.
I feel your pain, man. I played that same position, midfield and defensive, like transition too. And you see some O-midi or an attack guy who's like lagging behind. You can see him trailing the break and they're like, yeah, I'm going to put the stick up and dip off to the side here.
Dude, that's my best move when I'm playing hockey.
It's the worst. Yeah, I got to trail the fast break. Change. And then the goalie gets a save and you got to turn around and sprint the other direction.
Yep.
But,
I was a ball taxi. Is what you called there for a lot of years, right? Just like up and down the floor, just like shuttle it and then give it to the O guy and then run back, chase the breakaway, pick it up, run it back, give it to the O guy. So I did a lot of face off ball battle work, and I did a lot of transition running. So pays off, I guess, right?
Yeah, that's literally the only reason I started playing lacrosse is that my I never played before. My coach saw me and was like, "Yeah, you're big. You can run. We need a ball taxi, basically." Like,
Oh man, yeah, you'd be good on a draw too in field, I bet.
Yeah, I can put my
Flying
weight
from the
around.
wing.
Yep.
Yeah.
You were able to make this, methodical, steady climb up the leaderboard. At what point did your mindset change from, okay, I got to get back into this thing, to, hey, I'm going to finish on the podium and I got to make sure I secure that?
I think finishing the day one in fifth was really nice, going in particularly into a rest day to like allow me to kind of shut off a little bit and not stress about it. I think knowing that I had done most of the work already was nice. I think if I'd finished day one in like 20th, I'd be itching to continue to make that climb on that rest day. So that kind of let me shut off. I think that win on Friday morning, I think again, at that point I was like, oh, like you got all the tools you need. Like it's going to take time, but that's all it's going to take. If you can stay diligent in what you're doing. Those 6, 7, 8 was like the worst. I was terrible for 3 events in a row. So that was quite frustrating. So, I think by Friday night, I was pretty confident I was in the hunt. I think I was in third or something at that point. And I was like, looking at the guys around, I gave up. Like Saxon was right in that conversation and stayed there till the end. But looking at the guys there and the events I'd lost points to them in, it's like I lost 2 events in a row to them, which were the same event. And then other than that, most of the fitness workouts, the like the rope climb workout, the pig flip workout, a lot of the other like fitness longer workouts, the bike snatch, like I was crushing them routinely. So I was like, okay, that bodes well for the end. I mean, Justin was very consistent and wasn't showing any weakness. So I knew that he would likely stay on that course. And what we knew about the weekend up to that point looked really good for Brent in general. Like knowing we had a 1 rep max snatch coming up, we had a few of those things. Like I think by end of Friday, I thought we would be the top 3. And then I think by end of Saturday, we were very clearly separated. And Brent actually fumbled on the first 2 events of Sunday and brought BK back into the question because he did the opposite. Mm-hmm. But by end of Saturday, it looked like the top 3 were clearly separate, almost 100 points from 3rd to 4th. But for me, I thought by end of Friday, 6 events left. I thought, most of the odd stuff or the specific stuff was out of the way, like the sprint, the handstand walk, the whatever. Yeah. And so for 6 events left with like 1 lift and mostly just more CrossFit fitness, I had every confidence that I'd be in the conversation at the end there.
You've been going through and kind of recapping your events from the weekend, and I'm gonna quote Brent when he said this is an all-time gem of an event recap about a crisis averted on one of the heavy clean events. I don't think there's been a more relatable moment from anyone who's like questioning whether or not they should go to the bathroom before that thruster workout or the heavy clean workout starts at their class. But like I'm genuinely like curious, was that like, were you having stomach issues like the whole weekend, or was that something that, you just
it was worst on Friday, I think. Mm-hmm. And I didn't really have it bad when I woke up. I think that first event, I don't remember it being a big problem. Mm-hmm. After I finished, I felt it a bit and I thought like, oh, you pushed hard in that workout. Like sometimes your body hates you afterwards. Yeah. And then it was like really bad for most of that afternoon. That whole day, really, even the last event, I'm glad it was a short event and it wasn't like heavy or anything. But yeah, that going into that first one, I was kind of like, well, like, at least we're like power clean, right? We'll power clean. You'll be fine. Just power and you'll be good. And I was more concerned about the squatting in the second one, but I really made sure I was well prepared for that second one. And I think, it was just, how it just comes on fast, right? You're like, we're in the corrals and they were like giving us like the 30-second and my guts just went like, and I was like, oh fuck. Like, and I was like, should you just run? Like, and then just like run onto the floor. And I'm like, whatever, like adrenaline's going to kick in. Like, you're not going to think about it. You'll be fine. And I was mostly, and I feel like it was like the last round, like as I rounded the corner and came into the stadium, I was like, dude, my guts are killing me. And I was like, yeah, I was like coming to the last bar and I fully was running up and I'm like, we were in a race. It was like Brent and Justin and I'm like, you have to go and pull the bar. And at that, my 305 clean was good, power clean, but I very rarely power clean 315 period, let alone at the end of a workout. And like legs were feeling heavy coming into the stadium. I was like, I don't think you can power clean it. You have to go for a squat. And yeah, I was just coming in. I'm like, if you hold any kind of pressure in your stomach, like you're going to blow out your shorts. So I was like, whatever, pull it. And then I like, as soon as I got under it, I just went so soft and I was like, well, whatever. And then, we had like 5 seconds left of the cap. So it would have been interesting. It had been another minute on the cap like they did for the women. And I had to stand there and sort myself out to try to hit another clean.
There's a
I don't know how long that would have taken, Yeah. Well, and it comes and then it passes in like a couple minutes, but like, I don't know, like if that was gonna, I might have had a decision to make otherwise, but yeah, I pulled it, but I really don't think I put a real effort into it. I think I lifted the bar up. And I maybe should have just gone for the power clean regardless, because I think I would have had less odds of becoming a highlight reel. But anyway,
being on a
YouTube that happens.
Would have cut away from
and
that.
Like I said, that was like the start of a really bad stretch in the weekend for me. Like I was generating a lot of momentum, and then that kind of happened, and I was like, I easily gave up. Had I hit that clean, I would have been 5 places more in that workout or something. So what went from would have been a 5th place to a 10th place. And then, I had not a lot of confidence going into that second clean workout, and I wasn't feeling great. And then I was like a lot of pressure on the handstand push-up or handstand walk workout. And I was trying to be aggressive on it and kind of burnt myself out. And then like having a few issues and like my press was worn out and I just couldn't execute on the last obstacle. And it was like very frustrating. So, again, not like in the scheme of finishes, I think it was a 16th place finish, like not the worst thing in the world, but given being a workout that I certainly should have been top 10 in, I think it was that was like 3 big misses in a row. And I was like, oh, I finished that. And that was like fast, right? Rapid succession. I was like, I just gave up like 80 points to like Justin and Saxon. And that sucks. And even at that point of the weekend, I was trying to chase Brent, who was in second, and he finished right behind me in all 3 of those workouts in the first part of that day. And then he beat me in the handstand by 2 or 3 places. And I just like, I had undone all of the work I had done in the last kind of 4 events. And I was just like, fuck's sakes. Like, it was a frustrating part of the day. I went back and had a nice little bitch sesh to Michelle, and she sort of nodded her head and it's like, gave me like 5 minutes to just yell about it, and then gave me the like, hey, are you finished now? I'm like, we got to move on. And I was like, yeah, we'll see. Yeah. But like I said, and then the last workout of that day, I was happy it was just a fitness workout, not a really more of a grunt work kind of situation, and not an execution or skill heavy workout, because I clearly was struggling with that at that point of that weekend. And so I felt, again, confident in my fitness and happy that I could do a 4-minute workout and that just relied on guts. But I didn't want to do anything overly aggressive, because again, I just sort of needed to hit one into the middle of the fairway and then get organized again for another 2 days of competing. So that day was certainly the worst day of competition for me, and was very frustrating. But, I think that, like, to me, any hopes I had at winning the games were lost that day. Like, those 3 events in a row are where I would have lost the games. So yeah, it is what it is. But yeah, without a doubt, I think I was generating a lot of positive momentum, and then 3 events in a row, I absolutely whacked it into the rough. So is what it is.
Yeah.
The 1 rep max snatch event was, I think, one of the highlights of the weekend, at least for the spectators. What was it like being in that environment where you're in the final 10 and it's just you on that stage by yourself with the crowd, and then walking right by, Justin or Brent and kind of be like, hey, you're up, buddy. What was that whole experience like for you?
I mean, I hadn't done that in 2019. We didn't have the opportunity to do that after the cuts. So I thought I was excited to do it. My goal going in, knowing some of the guys out there and what their numbers are like, I wanted to try to make it to the top 10 and lift on the big platform. Like, that was like goal number one, and like outcome based. But I was like, that's where I want to end up. Like I need to do a lift on the big platform. That's it. So that's one you can't really control because they only went there once you got to top 10. So if everybody just starts hitting huge 300-pound snatches again, I don't know if I'm going to make it.
Yeah.
But that's what I selfishly wanted. Going into that event, you know, we have an idea of what people's numbers look like and who are like the big guys in that event. So I thought, you know, you'll give up some points to Brent on this one. If you lift well, you'll pick up points on Justin. Like, so that's the goal for the race. I told myself if I hit even 280, event 12 of the weekend, I was like, if you hit 280, you can be happy with that. 285 is like a good goal number. 290 is my current PR. So I was like, if you hit 290, that's like fucking great day. You got nothing to complain about. So, yeah, I mean, as we went, it's the ladder started heavy for the men. Like, I feel like 260 is not a guarantee, not a gimme lift. Like you had to actually focus right from the start. I was warming up with BK and we were like, both kind of talking about that. We're like, no, 260 is no joke. Like I'm going to have to pay attention right from the start. I would have liked if this started at like 245.
Yeah.
Like, then maybe you can just sort of like tap a couple in and warm yourself up. So there was pressure from the start. And I think that's why, you know, I got better as I went, because they're sort of like the pressure becomes less and less. Like, it's almost like, you know, if you miss 285, like it's 285, like a lot of people are missing it. It's no big deal. There's like less pressure almost at that point, right?
Yeah.
Like less people expect you to go up and hit a 300-pound snatch. So you feel a bit of that, and everybody's hitting the lifts. And, you know, my first ones were fine. My 260, my 270, my 275 was the bad one where I mean, it was lazy. Like, it was pure laziness, and my elbow still hurts from it. And so I relive that lesson every day. And I just like, I caught the lift and I was standing up and was just like not as engaged in my shoulders as I should have been standing lift up. Like, I just mailed it in before I was done the lift. Mm-hmm. And so I rolled my shoulder forward and hyperextended my elbow and had to like dance around with it. And for a second, I thought about just dropping it and just pulling the second time. But with a 20-second window, like, then there's no guarantees. I was like, you know what? Like, if you can save it, save it. And so I did. And yeah, like, I hyperextended my elbow and it hurt. But so I went back and was a little bit nervous for the next bar because I wasn't sure how my catch would feel. So then I over pulled the 280 and I missed it over the top. And I was kind of like, geez, like that's like 2 bad lifts in a row. So I hit the 280 after that and settled it, which was very clutch for me to stay in it. Because otherwise I'd be dropping a lot of points to both Justin and Brent, I think. And then after that, I just like relaxed a little more, and it was like the 285 felt really good. And then Brent lifted before me. So I'll be honest, I would have not minded if Justin missed 285. Knowing that was his current PR as well. And he missed the first lift. I was like, oh dude, like, just miss it. Just but, you know, and I think at that point when we were on the big stage, I don't know. I maybe should have been whispering in his ear as I walked by every time I hit a lift. But you know, I'm not usually that guy. So you just let him go. Just let him do his thing. I feel like mostly people were not trying not to watch each other either, just because I think there's some psychology there. If you watch somebody else miss a lift, you'll go up there and miss a lift, right? Yeah. But yeah, I maybe should have been like brushing past him a little harder. Maybe then he would have missed his 285. But also though, I think right at that chalk bucket, we had Jason McDonald there, was like the judge that was standing by that interaction. So I don't know how physical you want to get with another athlete while J-Max standing there. Yeah, you might find yourself in a chokehold real fast. So
give you a piece and a biscuit.
Yeah. Anyway, yeah, exactly. I don't want any of that smoke. Like, I'm good. So we, and then, I mean, after I hit 285, well, we all did. And then Brent lifted before me and he missed at 290. And I was like, ooh, like, there's an opportunity. Like, if you can hit 290 and pull ahead of him and have to avoid that tie break as well, because there was a bunch of people who missed at 290. Not being in that tie break was actually a pretty nice. I think that was another priority, is like lifting near the end, you see the athletes pile up and we're like, okay, if you miss here, there's like 5 of you in that tie break. which is, that's a lot of weight on 3 snatches at 225. So that was a big moment to hit the 290 and stand that up. Like, that was a huge amount of relief. And then obviously Justin missed his 290s. So suddenly I was like top 3 in a 1 rep max snatch, which is not typically where I'd expect to be. Like, I've done a lot of work on my snatch this year and improved my consistency at higher weights. But yeah, I was again expecting to give up some points to a guy like Brent in that workout. So that was huge. And then once I was top 3, like, I had no illusions that I was gonna beat Guy or
Royce.
Royce on that. But part of me was like, yeah, if like Royce misses at 295, like he had missed a couple bars just for technical issues earlier. I was like, if he misses at 295, or if I hit 295, like PR, sweet, things are going well, maybe. And it was close, but I was like, I could see a world where you end up in a tiebreak with Royce and you can steal a second place by beating him on 3 snatches at 225, which maybe I could do. But I think we all kind of saw the writing on the wall for you to win that one. It looked ridiculous. Like, too easy for him. So but that was another, like, momentum wise, that was a really good one for me. Like, to go again, the pegboard workout, even before that, I beat all the people I needed to beat. And then the snatch went really well for me, which was a huge boost. So going into the last day, I think it was like, again, starting to feel more, like I said, more like comfortable in my plans and my execution and what I was doing, that I didn't need to stress as much about like I just felt like, when we say in hockey, I was gripping the stick a little less tightly.
Yeah. One thing I was curious about, because you guys were actually staged on the competition floor directly underneath where our desk was. So I was watching how you were staying loose in between events. And I didn't see a lot of athletes go and hit that 225. Was it 225 that was on the side platform, like the warm-up platform?
I think we only had 205 on it.
205?
For the last bunch.
And I noticed that you were one of the few athletes that were going back and hitting a couple reps there in between each time. Like, what was your strategy as far as staying warm out on the competition floor?
Early, I kind of wanted to keep like my nervous system activated. And so I actually was like, I power snatched a couple of 245, 250 before the earlier bars. And then I just started realizing that when I was doing that, I was kind of over pulling my arms and things like that. And it wasn't, I think that's partly why I had those misses at kind of 275, 280, is that I wasn't like as much hip drive. I wasn't pulling really nice. Just because the load was heavier. And so I went down to 205 on the 1 bar and just tried to like focus on a really smooth, like knee to hip transition and get my hips really active and be really explosive from the hips, like almost like catch it really high, almost muscle snatch at 205. And then take that over. So that way your position's like primed a little nicer. So that was more about priming a nice position. It wasn't as much about like keeping the load or managing load. It was just like, staying a little bit warm and loose and keeping your positions nice. So earlier it was almost harder to do because when we had a lot of people, the time was less between lifts. So you were turning around really fast. And I feel like a couple of them and again, that's why I moved down in load. I was like, do a 245 power snatch or something. And then like 1 minute later I was on the platform and I'm like, oh shit. So I kind of decided to like, don't wear yourself out pulling too much load. You just need to keep primed in the right way. So that was, I think a few of us were doing that. Some people maybe didn't. It was also good for me after I sort of tweaked my elbow to just feel what a catch would feel like in a more comfortable catch position in like a power snatch than in the bottom of a squat. That's maybe a little more fragile catch position. So it was just like a little bit of keeping you loose and confident and trying to make your positions feel nice.
Yeah. Going into Sunday, you had Justin, within reach. I mean, it was going to take a lot, but you had him within reach. What was your, how did you show up Sunday thinking about, your chances of winding up on top of the podium?
Yeah, I think honestly, after Saturday morning, Justin beat me on the run and I didn't know exactly what the point spread was, but I was like, I think he's pretty out of reach. I wasn't really thinking about how the point spread had changed, and just given how he was performing and what my expectations were, like I didn't expect to make up so much on, say, the snatch or things like that. It's like, I think if I execute cleanly, he needs to make a mistake for sure. Even at that point of the weekend, that's how it looked to me. I'm like, I have made a couple bad ones, and he really hasn't yet. And I think he's in the zone, and like he needs to miss a pitch, and he really hasn't been yet, and he's not showing any signs like he will. So I was trying not to worry about it too much. I was like, it'll be what it'll be. If he slips, I'm going to be there to watch him fall. So I think I went by the end of Saturday, I realized in those last two workouts that I beat him in Saturday evening. I had made up something like 30 to 40 points. And I was like, oh, with that point spread, I need him to get beat by other people. But as long as other people middling, it's not that far. You can make up points fast. If I made up 40 points in two workouts, I can surely make up another 40 in three. So, going into Sunday, the priority was like, number one, you have to beat Justin in every workout. And then beyond that, you need help, really, is the reality of the situation. So if I was in Justin's place, I'd be going into Sunday saying, you need to stay as close to Vellner as possible. Because if you do that in every workout, you still win. So that's an unfortunate position to be in for me. Like, you don't really control your own destiny. So that was the priority. And I think going into Sunday, I was really only looking at him. We did the yoke workout, and he was in the lane next to me. It's really easy to keep an eye on him. So he was like a GHD ahead of me every round, and then I would catch him on the hay bale, and then I'd try to just run and pick up the yoke just before him. And I stayed, the first round, I think I finished like 10 or 15 feet ahead of him, and second round was the same thing. It's like, just try to stay right next to him, and you've got a 15-foot lead, so just keep that. Mm-hmm. And he did a really good job of doing everything he needed to stand right in my shorts and be my shadow, right? Like, and that's all he needed to do. So after that workout, I take second, he takes third. Next workout, I take first, he takes second. Like, it was after that, I think I got asked in my floor interview, what's it like? You're doing everything you can, and Justin's just not giving up any points. And I said, it's really annoying. It's like, yeah, I feel like, I've done everything I can for the last little while. And like I kind of said before, it's too bad I did it so late. So, that's on me, and I get that. And I think that's why at the end of the weekend, you can be frustrated, but he deserved to win more than I did. Like, he had a better competitive weekend than I did. And, maybe you run the race a few more times and it plays out differently every time. But like, that week, he was the better man, and he showed it really well. So I think he has every reason to be extremely proud of what he did. And, I need to go figure out how to not do the things that I'm notorious for doing. So going into the last workout, I talked to him a little bit in the back, and he and his coach, Adam, and I think that I was like maybe more willing to say, congratulations, you've already won the games, than he was willing to hear it, and his coach. And I know they were like very much trying to stay on top of it, but looking at it from a practical standpoint, I've been competing for a long time, and I see what it's like when someone is competing that well, and I've been that guy before. And knowing that going into that event, he basically needed to take an outside of the top 10 finish. Like, that, it just wasn't going to happen. There was no sticking points in that workout. The only thing was that he had ripped his hand doing, of all things, the 1 rep max snatch on Saturday. And I knew that. So I was like, if anything happens and he starts slipping on the pull-up bar, this workout is determined by 90 chest to bars. Mm-hmm. So if he can't do, or he has to over grip on the pull-ups or something, and his rip messes him up there, then there's a chance that enough people can beat him. And I have to be really good. If he gets off the pull-up bar even around the same time as you, there's no way for, 7 or 8 people hadn't beat him in a workout in 2 days. So I was like, what are the odds, right? So we kind of, it changes the way you kind of appreciate that moment, I think, a little bit. Like, we got to go out and you start on this like irrelevant 2-minute row, and they kind of like sit out there and be in the Coliseum and be like, all right, like, this is it. It's the last event of the games. Like, I was mathematically locked into second with a sniff of first place, but very unlikely. And so it's kind of like, do what you can, enjoy this row, because it doesn't matter. Do the pull-ups as well as you can, And then you kind of have to make a decision from there. And I think he got off the pull-ups a few reps ahead of me and just like was trucking hard right away on the lunges. And I kind of like looked at it, and I admittedly did not push super hard in the lunges because I was, I felt that there was nothing really to gain, I guess. But I kind of wish in hindsight that I had maybe pushed a little harder on that. And I mean, I took not a stellar finish there, maybe like a 9th place finish or something. But yeah, I tried to kind of enjoy that last little bit of that workout. And I wasn't super engaged in the race at that point with him because, he had won it. But the one thing that did happen late in that event is I kind of like became a little more involved in the race between Brent and Bjorgvin.
Yeah.
Because I was kind of I was lunging, and I knew I had heard that it was something like BK needed to beat Brent by like 2 places or something.
It wasn't a lot.
And so Brent was behind me and BK was in front of me, and I was like, man, I'm the guy middling this right now. So and BK and I were like tight for the whole workout. So I ended up hooking him on the last set of lunges because I was like slowly catching him, and then he fumbled on one with kind of 1 or 2 steps left. So I helped Brent stay on the podium, I guess, is the positive for me, I guess, that came out of that last workout. But it was like I said, going into the last workout and knowing you need a lot of help is not how I wanted it to go. So it is what it is, but I want to make sure I'm not in that position next year.
Yeah. I want to back up one event to the freestanding handstand push-ups. What was the mood amongst the athletes when that was announced?
It depends who you were.
Yeah.
I think, and that said, I don't think a lot of people had done very much of it. Like I had done that in like a fun skill workout at the gym like 2 years ago. And so like, I get it. Standard was what was kind of complicating.
Mm-hmm.
I think some people right away were like, maybe they're not great on their hands. They knew, I'm not going to figure this out quick. And this is going to be tough for me. This is going to be a tough workout. And I think by and large, those were mostly the athletes who were like maybe bigger power athletes who were probably annoyed that the heavy deadlift was irrelevant and it was all about the handstand push-ups. Mm-hmm. So, I'm a good deadlifter, and I was sort of like, wow, I hope my handstand push-ups are locked in this afternoon because that's what matters, right? The whole race is there. But the standard was sort of interesting. I think everybody asked a lot of questions, and it was clear that the standard had a lot of subjectivity to it, and there was quite a bit of gray area, and we were all trying to figure out how to not like game it, but how to maximize your output and be like, well, how do I make sure my reps count? And a little bit of it almost like I would have liked to have had 5 minutes to talk with my judge on the floor before we started to just be like, how are we going to call this? Like, because I can't see you either because I'm upside down facing backwards. The judges were standing in front of us. Like, I can't see you. I can't read hand signals. I can't whatever. Justin and I in that last stretch when we were close to the end, it got so loud. It's like, I can't hear you. I can't see you. I just got to hope these reps are good. And that if they're not, you're going to like, I don't know, physically push me back a line or whatever. And I think that's kind of what happened to Justin in the end is he finished his rep on the last line and thought he was done, but he had got a no rep earlier and didn't move back a line. Like maybe it was just a communication thing and it was so loud, but the judge's count was 13, but he had nowhere else to go on the mat. So he just ran. Yeah. And so it was sort of and then they called him back to do his last rep. And then I finished and went in. So it was like it was complicated. And I think, some of us figured it out as we went. I think there was a little bit of risk involved with trying to do big sets early. But when you were in the groove and you were feeling good, it was nice to knock out a few. But it was like I think a lot of the feeling was like, this is a bit of a party trick and, maybe not a super accurate representation of people's fitness. But, at the end of the day, I think what's important to remember in that is like your fitness definition is, a lot of that adaptability and ability to learn a skill on the fly is also important. Yeah. So, that's part of the game. So if you're a guy who's got kick-ass handstand push-ups and you couldn't figure out the freestanding handstand push-ups, you're probably annoyed. And I get it. And like, I'm not typically the guy who's going to win a handstand push-up workout, but it was freestanding handstand push-ups and I did. So, I get it. And there was certainly a bit of frustration around it, and not just frustration around like standard or things like that, but frustration because like when you're trying to learn a new skill and you can't get it, it's frustrating.
Yeah.
And I think particularly this cohort of people are pretty used to being good at stuff. So I think that was, a very frustrating experience for some athletes. And we definitely all were just trying to nail it down. Like we were in the back asking a bunch of questions, and I feel like we were mostly not getting very satisfying answers because everybody's looking for like a clean, objective, like this is a rep, this isn't. And we just didn't really get that. They'd like demo. We had, I think Allison Scuds was demoing it and say like, the standard was basically like you had to come up, you had to walk forward, and you had to have a full arm extension on the line before you came down. So like if I walked and I went like step and then I had my fingers on the line and then I went down, it's a no rep. And a lot of those reps look a lot like good reps. And so they would show us in the back and say, hey, okay, watch, Allison, do a good rep. And she gets up, walks forward, comes down. And you don't want to like hang out on the line forever before you come down. So you go like bang, bang, down. Okay, that was a good rep. Okay, now show them a bad rep. Okay, up, bang, bang, down. That was a bad rep. And we're like, excuse me? That one was a bad rep? We're like, show us the good rep again? Okay, up, bang, bang, down. Okay, now bad rep, up, bang, bang, down. Any questions? We're like, yeah, what's the difference?
A lot.
And so there was like, I think there was a lot of that. And so it became pretty clear to us that, you want to we know what the standards are on the points of performance, but it's different in a controlled environment, like with a demo when you're really nailing them. And it's just different when you're in a race.
Yeah.
And so it was like, all right, you got to do your best to try to make it really clear and not leave it up to a judge. But at the same time, like we kind of, I think, all had the expectation that you're just going to get a few no reps in there that you might not agree with or be like, I thought that I was locked out there and I don't know, but you're just going to have to shake it off and redo it because the time's ticking and it wasn't that long of a cap, right? Like, I don't know how many women finished, but I think just Justin and I finished for the men. And so anyway, it was I think a test in a little bit of like patience and how you manage frustration and how fast you learn a skill. Because it was easy to get frustrated. And you just had to kind of keep trucking. The hardest part almost for us, I think, I don't know, I can't speak for Justin, but we both seemed to struggle a lot in the last little bit of the workout. And I think as it got really loud in there, you sort of, it's great to have a lot of crowd energy and you can feel that static build. If I was going to go pull a heavy deadlift or something or do a max clean, I would really want that. But when you're trying to do a really fine motor skill, boy, do you not want that energy. Yeah. Like you wanted to like, everybody shut up. I'm trying to. So it was like, we started to overshoot, I think, and overkip. And like, it was just, you really had to control that and, figure out how to make it easier on yourself. Like I started doing, I had a few reps that I really did not have a lot of control coming down, and we had to show a controlled tripod stance at the bottom. And I sort of like on the fly just learned like, hey, if I come down and I just drill my knees into my arms and I don't let my feet touch, like that's a controlled position. It sure as hell doesn't look controlled coming down. Like I'm like falling from the top. And it's like when I lost control, I would do that. But as long as I hit that position and my toes didn't touch the ground, I'd hold that position for like 2 seconds. And my judge is like, yeah, that's controlled. So I got a rep. And like, so I was able to save a lot of reps at the end of sets by doing things like that. And I think, it's adaptability, right? Like a little bit of learning on the fly, trying something. And then when it works, you're like, great. And you run with it. So it was an interesting event. We had a few of those this weekend that were like not high heart rate type workouts where, you had the time on the floor and the presence of mind to like try to figure stuff out or, analyze the field and figure and see the races you were in. And so there were a few of those that weekend and it was fun.
Yeah. I was going to say
it's fun when you end up on the top of the workout as well. So I think some people had significantly less fun than I did in that one.
I was going to say there's two interesting parts about the free handstand work too, is like you have one of the most, I don't want to say frustrating no reps that you can get, which is the falling tree, where you just go a little bit too far in your head and it's just like a timber
slow motion.
Oh man, that's like so frustrating. But you also have like one of those moments when you come down and like you said, you bury your knees into your elbows and your feet just do like the Mission Impossible, like razor thin above the ground. You save, you're like, oh, thank goodness I don't got to do that. And that's
I had a few of those.
I saw a couple of it. That's
Oh,
a
I had a
tough line to
few of
walk.
those, and it was great. You'd see the judge was like ready to give the no rep, and they're like, yeah, yeah, you got it. Like, if he didn't touch, I was like, yeah.
They got the microscope out.
But it was funny. I feel like that point of the weekend too, like I said, we were sort of after that event, I was mathematically, I think, second, and Justin was in a very strong position on me. So, it's easier to relax at the end of a competition like that. Most of it's done, and you're kind of, after that event, I heard Justin was appealing for that no rep to try to win the event. And I went and gave him a really hard time. I was like, dude, like, if you win the event, like, I get a Reebok bonus for winning the event. Like, it's another $10,000. I was like, if you win the event, it's like less money in the pot. Like, why don't you just like not appeal it, and then I can just pay you out of pocket, like, more than you would make for the event win. It's like, dude, come on now, like, come talk to me about this stuff. What are you doing?
Hey,
so I was having a ribbing him and his coach a little bit, and so it was funny. It was good. We had some fun in the back there on the last day. I think we both kind of knew what the deal was, and with every event that went by, there's less opportunity to close the gap, and he did everything he needed to in those 2 workouts. So I feel like after each of them, I was like, hey, nice work. Like, you're doing exactly what I would do. Yep. Like, so it was good. He competed extremely well. I think there was, high competition IQ in that last day from him. And, that's what you want to see. And I think it's really cool to see him finish on such a high note. Like, realistically, he was very consistent all week long, but his last day's event finishes were 3-2-1, I believe. Yeah. So that's how you win the CrossFit Games. It looks sexier than me taking like a 4th on the last event and then winning.
Yeah.
So yeah, it looked a lot better. So he was great.
And take maybe a bribe from P. Vellner on second to last event. I would have waited till my appeal got denied, not said anything, and been like, yeah, I'll take it. Don't worry.
No, well, that's what ended up happening. We were on the bike or something, and one of the athlete control guys came by and like chatted with them, and he comes back, and I was like, so what's the deal? He's like, well, there was a no rep earlier, and they went and checked, and the count was correct, but I was just in the wrong place. And I said, well, see, should have took the deal. Now you get nothing.
Money.
Yep.
You look
it was fun. Those guys were a lot of fun on the week. They were great.
You look at Justin, he's 22 years old. He's 9 years younger than you. You're a dad, you got a lot going on. And how can someone that's in your position and, towards the back half of his athletic prime, just age wise, catch a guy who's in that situation?
Well, for one, he's not that far ahead. Yeah. I think, let's say I take a 20th in the swim, what's the score look like, right? Like, yeah. And I think the spread is, again, I think that I gave up points on the last workout that I didn't need to, kind of for lack of effort, but he's really not that far ahead like this. And I think, knowing that I beat him in a lot of events in the weekend, and the ones that I didn't, there's several of them I know were poorly executed on my part. Some of them, I think he would have beat me even if I did execute on them, but some of them maybe not. So I don't think it's that far off. He's great and he's super well-rounded, but he certainly doesn't have the air of invincibility that someone like Matt had. And I think, he's got the disadvantage of the fact that I've dealt with Matt Fraser for many years. And, so I'm certainly not deterred by that kind of thing. So I think that, there's a lot of things that even if I just tidied up my execution on this weekend, there's a very different outcome. So there's a lot of things that I needed to just, not that I was unable to do better. Like, I don't even think it's things that I need to improve a lot on. It's just, I needed to perform to my potential in several areas that I didn't. Yeah. And, I think that this last year, I had a pretty good training year. There was still a few hiccups throughout the year where I had to take some breaks for various reasons. So I think that another good year of training will put me where I need to be. And I think there's some things that I've maybe not worked on as much as I could or should, so that I could do other things that I felt like I would maybe gain more of an advantage from. And it's become clear that I can't let those things slide anymore. Like, I think there were areas where I was good enough for a long time that I didn't need to put effort into, that I have since now, like the field's catching up, right? And I think that that's a reality in some areas. For years I didn't have to do a handstand walk all year, and then I could still take a top 5 finish, and that's simply not the case anymore. So there are some things like that I think I need to improve on. I was able to keep myself healthier this year than I had in the past couple of years. So I think that being able to do that moving forward will be good. If I can, and I think that we just made some adjustments. Like this last year, I trained a little bit less volumes wise than I have in the past, which maybe is something you have to do when you're in your 30s. And I think that, I think that that's good for me. And I have built a strong foundation, and I've got good skills from a lot of years. So, I have the advantage of maybe not being able to do some of those things for a lot of the year, and then really drilling them when the critical parts of the year come around. And I don't know, it's Justin will be good. He will continue to get better, I think. But I think looking at him, I don't think his ceiling is as high as Matt's was. Mm-hmm. I think that you're looking at certainly him winning as the youngest champion is awesome and bodes well for his future. But I still think there will be a more exciting few years in the men's division than there have been in a long time. Yeah. Like, I don't think he's separate from the field in any way. Yeah. So there's enough guys out there who can still, fleece him for points in various events. And, I'm hopeful that, my pals in the 30-year-old category are still feeling strong and capable, because really what we look at, was a lot of hype around the youth movement this year, and Justin delivered on it. But, then what's me at 31, Brent at 30, BK's 30, I think, Saxon's the next guy who's performed very well. But, the old guys still got it. So as long as they stick around for a little bit, I'm happy to keep throwing my hat in the ring. So I've been joking with people lately. Like I've got 2 third medals and 2 seconds. So I got 2 sets of medals to complete.
Yeah.
So
right on.
No, I was moving on now to the off season. I was just going to ask what your plans are for some of these competitions that are coming up, because there are some big ones with a lot of money on the line.
Yeah, and I think we're still missing a little information about some of them, which I'd like to have before I make any decisions about it. My next month is a little bit tied up with, I have a wedding coming up, and I'm not really planning to do any real training for the rest of August. Start doing some bits of like rehab, foundational stuff, some stability training, things that I had done in the last year to help me stay healthy, and I need to continue to do. Like I talked a bit about my elbow and things like that. I've got a little bits, elbows, shoulders, knees, and toes that I need to keep feeling good if I'm going to try to ride this out for another couple of years and be competitive. So that sort of stuff I might start soon. I'm not doing anything real for a month or so. I would look ahead to, Rogue might be the first one that I try to get into. So we'll see, post wedding, we'll see how much. I don't have a ton of time to get back to fighting shape at that point, but I think there's fun opportunities there. One of the things that I'm looking forward to doing actually is, obviously my partner Michelle is on maternity leave right now, and we've never really stopped running for as long as I've known her. So my whole career, I've been very much a fly in, fly out athlete. And I don't really hang around and enjoy the things that come with, the success I've been able to have. So this year, because she's not going to be working for the first time in forever, and I'm not at school, and I can sort of book my own days off, I think we're planning to do some of those off-season events and stay, and like
nice.
Go and compete, and then spend a day or 2 or 3 and have a little holiday, and try to just actually, milk it a little bit, for lack of a better word, for I don't have a whole lot of years left, I don't think. And I think while I'm still at the top and competing well, I think it's fun to take advantage of those things in a way that we've never done. I think I've been very much a bit of a ghost in the world, where I'll show up and I'll take the podium place and grab a prize purse, and then I just disappear, and I'm back at work on Monday. And that's very much been how I operate for my whole career. And it's great. And I'm happy I've been able to do that. But I think there's a lot of fun stuff that I haven't done that I would like to do before I ride off into the sunset, So I think this year, with Michelle able to travel with the baby, and us having a little more time and freedom for the first time in a while, I think that's something we're going to try to do, is go do, I don't know what it'll be. I'll probably pick a couple off-season events to do. And then, if the season structure stays the same as this year, I might just kind of shut it down for like the open and the quarterfinals, maybe even, and sort of dial it back a fair amount and use that as part of my season recovery. Yeah, so we'll see, pick a couple and go for it. There's some great prize purses around and some fun experiences to be had. So do a little bit of that. I might let her pick one and I'll pick one, and then we'll try to actually enjoy ourselves a little bit.
There you go. And the
ghost, not be so all business.
Like that.
Yeah, the ghost is a good nickname.
Yeah.
Where have I heard that before?
It feels that way, right?
Yeah.
I feel like anyway, so it'll be fun. We'll try to have maybe a little more fun than I've had on the competition season in a little while. I think I definitely had some fun doing that in the sanctionals season in 2019. And I think that, I think that it's a cool way to compete. But back then I was still in school, and then I started work, and Michelle's been working. So like I said, the freedom will be fun, and we're going to try to take advantage of it while we have it before we get really locked down with too many babies and jobs and things like that.
As you should. One thing I always try to watch at the end of the weekend is athlete expressions when they cross the finish line for the final time. A lot of times you'll see, an athlete kind of wear their emotions a little bit more on that final like finish line cross. One that stood out to me, Brent was he seemed so excited and relieved to have made through the weekend once he crossed that final time, given what he was battling with. And I'm curious what sort of emotions or feeling kind of went through you at that moment when you crossed for the final time. You knew you were back on the podium, and how did that differ compared to other years?
I'm curious what you saw.
It was.
I'm not typically someone who's very overtly emotional in a competition so I'm actually kind of curious what you saw.
Yeah, well, for me, when I saw you cross, it was like bittersweet. It was like I'm here and I got the goal. Like like it's hard to quantify, but some person, if you told them like at the end of the weekend you're going to be on the podium, they'd be pumped. But if you flashed forward with the context of but you were close, and had a chance in the final event, maybe like that would add a level of bittersweet, and that's what it seemed like when you crossed.
Yeah, I think that I do a reasonable job, I think, of processing events as I go along. I try to, when things are done, I try to process it quickly, talk about it quickly with my coach, and then try to leave it behind. So, the last event was the last event. Like I already talked about it. I kind of knew what the deal was. And by the midway point of that workout, it was out of reach and it was very clear. So I think there was no super disappointment in that. I think, but overall on the weekend, that would be a good way to summarize it as bittersweet. Like I think there was a certain amount of relief that after a couple of years of poor performances at the games and being hurt last year and having to rehab for half of this year, I was able to come in and just not just show that I belong, but that I belong on the top.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that like there was a lot of talk that maybe I could win this year, and I think it's very hard for me to look at the way the weekend played out and not feel like I really let one go by. That I certainly had every ability to win that competition. And I think it was, poor execution at times, maybe a few poor decisions, some circumstance, but that's what happens in competition. And I've been competing in a lot of sports for a long time, and I get that. Every day is not your day. So it's hard when, now it's 365 more days to get back there. And you never know, what's going to happen in the meantime, right? So it's hard. It's hard not to look at that and be a little bit disappointed. But I think overwhelmingly, I'm more proud than I am disappointed. So I think that given just like what the return to that was like, and just how I felt after last season, I think it was nice. It was really nice to go back and compete at the games in a more full format and be able to show what you're capable of. And like I said, there was a lot of positives and a lot of wins. I won more events than I ever have. I was able to be aggressive at times when I needed to, but there were just too many misses, and that's not how you win, right? So I think that I knew that, and it was fine. And like I said, I had mostly processed that by the time I ever crossed the finish line at the end. So, if people had told me beforehand that I would have finished second, I would have been pleased with that. And I think, I had been asked that before the games ever started. Like, hey, if at the end of the weekend you finish in second place, will you be happy or disappointed by that? I think it seems silly to be disappointed by that or to be sad by it. I think it's okay to be disappointed by little things, but I think at the end of the day, that's a stepping stone that I wanted. I think it's hard to, after that kind of hiatus and 18 months without competing, to come in and be like, well, I belong at this position on the podium and, I'm entitled to that. So, it's a stepping stone back in the right direction after a couple of years of not doing that. So, there's work to be done. And like I said, it's pretty clear when I reflect on the weekend, like I've been doing through my Instagram stuff, that, I didn't deserve to win that weekend. So it's the way it is.
What was it like for you having your son there?
Well, I kind of wish, it felt weird. Like I wish I was able to see them more. It's hard to just be selfish about that stuff all week. I was happy that with the second day being a rest day, I was able to kind of spend the whole day with the family and do that. But yeah, I don't know. I don't typically rely on a lot of people for a lot of things. So it was nice to have my family there and Michelle and know that things were taken care of, but try to service that in the evenings whenever I could. Like every night I'd go and have dinner with them. We had 2 separate rooms so that I could sleep and kind of escape and do things I needed to do to be successful. But it was, I tried to put as much time in with them as I felt like I could. And then, I try to, make up for some of that now, but it was really cool. I think it was, I think, only appropriate to have them all there because like, that's the team, right? Even in the prep phase with a young baby like that, I wouldn't have been able to prepare the way I needed to if it weren't for that help anyways. So I think it's really nice to have them there to enjoy it at the end as well, right? And see the fruits of that labor and like see it bear fruit and be a part of that experience. So it wouldn't have felt right for them not to be there, but it was hard. I think it's hard to, I don't know, to feel like you're not as involved as you could be at times or giving everything you can in that context.
Yeah. All right. Well, listen, man, we really appreciate you taking the time. It's always a pleasure to talk to you. Wish you the best of luck moving forward and hope to see you competing in some of these off-season events.
Yeah. Thanks, guys. It's always my pleasure. I mean, I'm sure I'll see you guys around, hopefully in person again.
Exactly. For sure.
Yeah. All our best.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah. Seriously, man. Oh, crazy.
Yeah. Well, all our best to Michelle and Owen and the whole family, and take care of yourself, man. Thanks again for doing this.
Thanks so much. We'll see you guys later.